In this two-part episode, we explore Jayme's story of twin pregnancy and the heart-wrenching decisions she faced. How does she navigate the complexities of carrying both life and loss simultaneously? Join us as we uncover Jayme's emotional roller coaster, from the joy of discovering she was pregnant with twins to the devastating choice she had to make. Jayme's story challenges our understanding of pregnancy, grief, and the strength of the human spirit. Stay tuned as we unravel Jayme's remarkable tale in part one of this two-part series. The Golden Hour Birth Podcast, a podcast about real birth stories and creating connections through our shared experiences.
Childbirth isn't just about the child. It's about the person who gave birth, their lives, their wisdom, and their empowerment.
We're Liz
and Natalie,
the Golden Hour Birth Podcast, and we're here to laugh with you,
cry with you,
and hold space for you. Welcome to the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. I am your co-host, Liz.
And I'm your co-host, Natalie. And tonight we have Jayme, originally from St. Louis on, now back in St. Louis. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Jayme.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So if you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about you and your family.
Well, there's me. I'm mom. And then Jayme, I'm mom. I'm 33. And I'm born and raised in St. Louis. I grew up in Aston. And I've traveled a bit, but I always come back. And then my husband is John. He is 38. He's from Connecticut. He and I both met in AmeriCorps and Triple C. So it's kind of like Peace Corps, but it's specifically in America. And the branch that we did is you kind of like travel all over the United States doing like disaster relief, working with nonprofits, a lot of like building houses and things like that. So we met in that program in 2010. He did another year in 2011. And I came back to St. Louis and we did long distance for a year. And then when he was done, I was like, move here, and sucked him in. And then he moved here. So then he moved in here November 2011. And we've been together ever since. Very happy, healthy marriage, relationship, etc. We're truly best friends. And we have a kid, one living child, Seamus. And he just turned 3. And I know everyone says this about their kid, but he is the cutest. You might hear him romping around upstairs. He's claiming right now that he's a horse galloping, chasing salmon. Because of course. Yeah, right.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
So when did you and John decide to start trying for kiddos?
So we always wanted a big family. I come from a big Irish family and I've always loved it, just the giant family events and things like that. And he's been an only child and he's always wanted the big family, giant family events, things like that. And he's always enjoyed like my family's get-togethers. So we've always dreamed of a big family. We've also always like joked and dreamed about like, man, wouldn't it be cool if we ever had like multiples, like twins or triplets or whatever? Because I grew up with 3 sets of twins. Like my neighbors were twins, and then I had 2 sets of twins in my class. And I always thought that was like really cool to have someone that like looks just like you or was born the same day as you and you grew up with them. And so yeah, always had dreams of like some crazy big family. But we also like wanted to live a little bit first. So we did, we kind of did like the 9-to-5 hustle for a bit, you know, sort of like all the steps, like get a promotion, get a bigger apartment, get a promotion, get a house, things like that. Like get married, get a house. So we, where was I going with that? Got the house, got the promotion. So he was doing 9-to-5, whereas I was doing like multiple job gig hustle. So like I'd wake up and waitress and then get done waitressing and go babysit and like things like that. Just like multiple things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually we just got burnt out. We were like, we're just like working all the time and not necessarily doing like deep, passionate things. And like, is this what we want? We also ended up getting a dog around the time we were having these conversations. And so we had this like puppy that we were always taking on like adventures with us. We took her camping, we would take her hiking, we would take her off leash areas. And that was always really fun. And so we were like, you know what if we just like took a year off work and got an SUV and just like did Airbnbs around the country for like a year. And then we like can come back to this hustle and maybe start a family then. So while we were like in the process of doing that, this was 2000 and I want to say 16. I think this was 2016. We were like about to pull the trigger on an SUV. And my best friend was like, have you guys ever heard of van life? And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of van life. It was like a very new thing then. It's blown up since then. But I wasn't even on like social. I had Facebook, but I didn't even have Instagram or anything at the time. And he was like, yeah, look up the hashtag van life. And so we like looked it up. And there was a bunch of people that built vans into tiny homes and like kitchen and everything inside these vans and traveled around the country. And we were immediately like sold. Like that's what we want to do for sure. And immediately started selling like everything that we owned. We got renters into our house. We got a van for stupid cheap, like $1,500. And we built it out ourselves, queen size bed, kitchen, solar panels on the roof, all kinds of stuff. And then we left. So that what we after all was said and done, we left in April 2017. And we just traveled. We just because of like time and weather and stuff, we started off in the southwest. So we went to like the desert, New Mexico, and all different kinds of stuff. Fell in love immediately. But then we just like kind of chased weather the whole time. Like when it was hot, we went high altitude. When it was cold, we went south. And we also, because of like our families being from different places and because of AmeriCorps, we met people from all over the country. Mm-hmm. So because of those two, we were also just constantly visiting like friends and family and stuff. So that was cool. Yeah, I mean, it was the dream. It was so much fun. A lot of times we were just staying in like the middle of nowhere on the forest all by ourselves. Milky Way above us and ridiculous dreamy stuff. Yeah. Before we moved into the van, so we started having this idea in 2016. We entered 2017 and we were like heading downtown for the Women's March after the 2016 election. And so we'd arrived downtown and I started getting like ridiculous cramps, like so severe, nothing like I ever experienced before, like pain to the point of making me throw up. I thought I was having like an appendix burst or something like that. But then I started my period, a heavy one, but I started my period and my sister always has like really crazy periods and always had. So I was like, maybe I'm just getting a taste of what my sister has. Like maybe it runs in the family or whatever. Didn't really think anything of it. So we ended up like not marching. We like immediately went home after that. But just like this really weird fluke of a thing that lasted like 2 days and I was perfectly fine. So we're traveling in the van and one of the times we're back in St. Louis. This was 2018. I'm pretty sure it's 2018. This was like March 2018. We're back in St. Louis visiting. And I think I was like slightly late on my period. But we got a pregnancy test because I was like, at the time, we were drinkers. We smoked marijuana. We were like former cigarette smokers. We didn't have like good sleep habits and things like that. So like, And I had gotten off it at this point, but I was previously on the Implanon. So just like, I never really had super regular periods, just because I wasn't the best at taking care of my body. And so I was like, I think I'm late. I don't know. But both of us like weren't alarmed at all. I was like, I'm going to take a pregnancy test, like just to be safe kind of thing. And it was like after a whole week of us like doing upgrades on our van, and like my husband was so tired and he was like, I am sleeping in tomorrow. Nothing's going to stop me. And I was like, I'm going to let you. That sounds great. So we're sleeping that night. I wake up and have to go to the bathroom at like 4 a.m. And I'm like, well, while I'm up, I'm going to take this test just so that we can like have peace of mind that we're not pregnant kind of thing. And I take the test and it's positive. And, I don't know if we're allowed to cuss on here. Are we allowed to cuss on here? Okay. So, my initial reaction was, oh, fuck, kind of reaction. And like, and not like I don't want to be pregnant, but just like, wasn't expecting this kind of thing. Like this kind of changes things. Like gonna need to put a car seat in this van house or whatever. So it's like 4 a.m. and I'm sitting there like, do I wake him up? He really wanted to sleep in, but like this feels like big news. And so I ended up waking him up, and he had like a similar reaction to me, but like excited than my initial reaction. His was less like, oh my God, what? And was more of like, whoa, 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 kind of thing. But yeah, and like luckily we were in town, so like already had like sort of a doctor cycle or whatever. And so we went out to eat breakfast and we're all like giddy. And I just remember us like sitting there being like, I don't even know what I can and can't eat. We should like Google that. Oh my God, kind of thing. And called the doctor. They were like, you can come in today and do blood work. And so we did. And I want to say they did an no, they didn't do an ultrasound. We did the first round of blood work and they were like, you're going to come in 48 hours to do the second round. So we do that and we're all like getting excited. We went to Barnes and Noble and got all of our parents like grandparent books. And just throughout the day, I like ended up telling all the family essentially of like, guess what happened sort of deal. So that was an exciting, like, 48 hours or whatever. Then we go in for the second round of blood work. And if I remember correctly, this is how it went. We did the second round of blood work, and then they called us and they were like, hey, come in for an ultrasound or whatever. Or maybe we did it when we did blood work too. I don't remember. But whichever way it worked, we like did an ultrasound and they were like, this isn't viable. Like, you're going to miscarry this. And they were like, not really compassionate about it. They were really blunt and almost like, okay, like I have other shit to do. Can we move on? Kind of thing. And I like kind of went off on the doctor of like, not a way to talk to people. Like, you just like, maybe you're used to saying this, but we're not used to hearing this.
Yeah.
And they were like, do you want to schedule a DNC? Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that because there's like a part of my brain that was like, this is going to work out. You don't know what you're talking about, kind of thing. So we both like moved on with the pregnancy as if like, this is going to work, right? Like we can manifest this kind of mentality. And my mom lives in North Carolina. So then we went to visit her. And so this was April 2019. And while we're visiting her, I start miscarrying. And I basically just did it like naturally in her bathroom over the course of like 2 days, something like that. And it was while I was miscarrying in her bathroom that I'm like going through all this stuff, actively knowing that I'm miscarrying, that I'm going, oh my God, that's what happened to us the day of the Women's March. Like we were pregnant, we miscarried. Like I had never felt anything like that before, except for the moment I knew I was miscarrying. So that was also just like a really weird moment of like, just digesting that. So then that was technically pregnancy number 2. We did a follow-up appointment in North Carolina with the doctor out there, just to like make sure everything flushed correctly and all is good. But then after that, we were in this mindset of like, let's have a kid kind of thing. Like, I think we're ready. We've been traveling for 2.5 years and all our stuff, blah, blah, blah. So then we were like, part of the van, the idea behind the van was like, where do we want to settle down? And we were like, it can be St. Louis, that's fine, but let's see what our options are. And at the time, we were just like deeply in love with New Mexico. And so we drove back and like camped around New Mexico for a while, and eventually found this property out there. It was a house on 20 acres, a fully off-grid house, solar panels, well, septic, a straw bale house, which is like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's I don't know how well you guys know like passive heating, cooling, earth shifting type of things, but it's just a natural made house, and it heats and cools with like the position of the house to the sun and those all different kinds of stuff. And the straw bale like keeps the heat in really well. So that on 20 acres and another 20 acres like touching it. So we got both. So we had off-grid house on 40 acres, mountain views, super, super dreamy, like rainbows all the time. I can send you guys photos. It's literally like the dreamiest thing we've ever done. And we absolutely found most of it. We made a giant garden that we shaped like a vulva. And we called it our vegetable garden.
I love it.
And because like when you're in the middle of nowhere, you can do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want. And that's a pretty thing.
Yeah, right. So we just had this 20-foot vulva next to our house. We were like,
yeah, I need to see pictures of that.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah, we were like, this could be like good energy of like, you know, creation and etc. So we had a good time out there.
Obviously.
So we're out in New Mexico. We eventually moved into that house in I want to say September of 2018. So we lost a second pregnancy April 2018, moved into the house September 2018, and I want to say late September 2018, we found out we were pregnant again. And we were like, sweet, let's do this. And before we even like officially chose New Mexico, we like interviewed the midwives there and stuff like that to figure out like, how's this fit? Because we really wanted to do home birth. I'm like terrified of hospitals. I'll say I've gotten better over the year, but at the time I was like deathly terrified of hospitals. So loved the idea of like natural home birth kind of deal. And so yeah, we liked the midwife situation. And we got pregnant. That was great. And then we told the midwives we were pregnant, and they were like, okay, well, we're not going to do like they were very, very, very crunchy, I guess is how you could say it. And it's like, we don't do ultrasounds that could harm the baby. We don't do, or like they do, but it's like maybe 2 the whole pregnancy kind of thing, just to like check on things. They don't do like the blood work, like, you know, you can if you push for it, but we didn't really know like what to advocate for at the time. So we were like, okay, yeah, we're following your lead kind of deal. And a few weeks later, October 27th, 28th, we started miscarrying. which was actually the anniversary of my grandma dying and was 2 days before my birthday. So my birthday is October 30th. Um, um, but I will say it was nice, like kind of just having this little private place to ourselves while going through that instead of just like, I don't know. It was just nice having like a little retreat to just process it ourselves. Um, but that was another like naturally pass it at home situation. We were really upset that like we never had an ultrasound kind of thing, no like memento essentially. And I kind of not like super harshly, but I did kind of like go off on the midwives about that of like, we have nothing from this kind of thing we could have had or whatever. And then we started shopping around for different midwives, and we knew that we were now looking at the 3 miscarriages statistic, where it's like maybe start doing some testing or whatever. So we talked to like the actual OB when we were near like our main town was Taos, New Mexico, which is like northern New Mexico. So we talked with them, and they said some things that we could do, but they were like, ultimately, like you'll probably want to go to a specialist who, and the closest specialist is Albuquerque. Like there's not a lot in New Mexico. And Albuquerque was 3.5 hours away. So we were like, okay, yeah, let's try it. And so we go to this place. They offer to do like all this different like free testing for you. We didn't know this at the time, but it's with the idea that you're going to sign up and do IVF with them. We're like, wow, that's so cool. They'll just like do all this free stuff. And then before we really had any test results, they sat down with us and gave us like the hard sell of like, obviously do IVF. Why would anyone go through anything else if they could avoid it, kind of thing? And we're like, a lot of IVF, it's necessary for so many people, but we're not there yet, kind of thing. Like we want to see what else we can do. Also, let's get these test results back first. So we did all kinds of things like testing John, testing me, see how everything looks. And like the bittersweet side of it was like, everything looks perfect, which like, that's phenomenal. But it's also like, there's no answers. Like, why is this happening kind of thing? Or like, what can we do to make sure this doesn't happen? So then after talking to some people in Taos, and Taos is a very like willy mystical place. So people are like, there's this Chinese medicine doctor in town, you should talk to him. So we started talking to him. He's an acupuncturist, but he's also studied Chinese medicine. And we had like one visit with him. I want to say this is January 2020, either December 2019 or January 2020. I think it was January 2020. And he basically comes up with like this whole plan that we're going to do. You're going to take these meds pre-conception. Once you conceive, you're going to shift to these. We're going to like check in with you throughout the whole time and shift meds as needed. And it's like herbs. It's not like pharmaceutical meds. And we're like not fully understanding what we're doing, but we're like, sure, yeah, we'll follow your lead here. We're like, we'll try anything at this point. So we're doing that, and then COVID hits, and he's like, I'm not doing acupuncture anymore, but I'll still like prescribe meds. Just tell me like if anything's feeling like more this or whatever, and we'll adjust accordingly. And so like everything in the world obviously shut down for a while. So we're working with him for like 5 months or whatever. And the first like few months of the year, we were like really just like, it wasn't really like making love anymore. It was just very mechanical. Like, we're trying to make a baby. Like, I'm ovulating. Let's do this. And we were just like not happy about that. So we actually found a like couples virtual sex course, which is like not as raunchy as it sounds. It's basically just like, here's these intimate ways to connect with your partner. Here's your homework, things like that. And it like took all the stress out of it and just made us like connect deeper and just made it fun again. Um, so like, yeah. So then we're just like having fun again and just taking the pressure off of it too. We're like not tracking like, I'm ovulating today, we gotta go kind of thing. It's like we're just seeing what happens essentially. So then in July of 2020, we my best friends are visiting us in New Mexico and we get a positive pregnancy test. And we had like all of these plans and stuff too. Like there was some places still doing certain things because of COVID. Like we could do private horseback riding lessons and stuff. And it's like, can't do it if you're pregnant. All the stuff we were planning to do, like white water rafting, can't do it if you're pregnant. So we're like, let's just hang out on 40 acres, I guess. Look at the mountains. Isn't that cool? Yeah. We have games. But so we were ecstatic, positive pregnancy test. Let's see how this goes. All the symptoms, all the good things. And then we had our first ultrasound scheduled. And because of COVID, it was only I can go in. And I essentially like begged them of like, we've never had a good experience. This is going to be like shattering for me if I'm by myself during this ultrasound and it's bad news kind of thing. Like, can my husband please come in? And they gave us wiggle room. They were like, yeah, okay, we can do that. Obviously, mask up. Your husband can go with you. So it's me and my husband at the ultrasound and, you know, holding hands, all that jazz over the belly ultrasound. And she's like, here's baby, healthy heartbeat, all of this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, yes, great, ecstatic, measuring exactly where it should be. And she's on the left side of my stomach. And in my head, I'm going, now look at the other side, look at the other side. And like, it didn't feel like it was my voice, but there was this voice in my head going like, okay, move the wand over kind of thing. And so she does, and she goes, and here's another baby. And we're like, and like I immediately start crying. John is wearing a mask, but you can tell that his like smile is like breaking off of his face, and he's like tears in his eyes, literally jumping up and down. Two healthy heartbeats, measuring exactly where they should be. Identical twins, which you can tell because of like how the sacs are. So one placenta, two sacs, but identical twins. And yeah, so like over the moon, we were like, we don't know if it was the course or these Chinese meds or what, but like we did it. It's happening. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't remember specifically when this was. We found out we were pregnant in July, so I'm guessing this was August, probably August or September at the very latest. And then so we're just like fucking cloud nine. And we start working with an MFM doctor. I'm going to pause super quick. I do see the countdown for the time left. Is there a specific time you want me to stop before we hop on a new one?
Let's just run it down to like a minute or two.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sorry. I don't know if you can like end. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we're like cloud nine. We're making, you know, baby registries with double items. But right off the bat, they were calling them baby A and baby B. And John and I have had kids' names picked out since you know, 6 years prior to this at minimum. And so I said to him at one point, it sounds morbid, but I said this to him at one point, I was like, we need to name baby A and baby B, because if we lose one, I don't want to be struggling figuring out which name do we give up. So we named baby A Seamus, and we named baby B Killian. Seamus Yonder and Killian Hendricks. And
very Irish.
So, very Irish. Yes, we are both Irish. Can you tell? And due date in March. We were like St. Patrick's Day babies. Yeah. Really, these are the real Irish twins.
Yeah.
So yeah, Seamus and Killian, Aaron, just cloud nine. Everyone's like always crying, excited, grandparents, everything. Oh my God, 2 boys. And then, so then, like early to mid October, and so now we're meeting with like MFM doctors, like maternal fetal medicine doctors, like specialists, which are in Santa Fe. So we're having doctor's appointments every like 2 to 4 weeks, 3 hours round trip, an hour and a half to get there, and an hour and a half to get back. And the town that we live in doesn't really have big box stores. There's one Walmart, but that's it. So we always made sure that we had like an early morning appointment. We would go down early morning, and then we could like do all of our like big shopping and then go home. It was always a whole day event.
Yeah.
So one of the days in October, I want to say it was mid-October, we get and because of COVID, they were strict on like, we work with high risk. We can't have multiple family members in here. So John had to like video chat while I was in the room, and like cell service was horrible. So like he'd be watching, but he couldn't really see anything. But I'm sitting there, we're doing the ultrasound, the girl's all chatty, and then she gets really quiet. And I'm like, what's up? And she's like, well, the doctor's going to be in and he'll talk to you in a minute. And then she just like scurries out. And I'm like, John, I have a feeling something like not good is happening right now. And I like briefly explained that. And he's like, okay, well, let's just like see what happens. So then the doctor came in and he was like, I'm gonna ask your husband to come on up. Like wherever he is, just have your husband come up. And I was like, okay, John, did you hear that? Like he told you to come up. And he was actually parked across the street at Walmart because they had better service. So he drives over, almost got into a car accident, came up, and like long story short, they said that Killian was developing CDH, which is congenital diaphragmatic hernia. So his diaphragm did not develop all the way, and he had organs coming up from his stomach cavity to his chest cavity, was pushing his lungs and heart over. And it wasn't like severely critical, but it was like, as soon as he's born, we're going to need to do like open chest surgery kind of thing. And New Mexico does not have like creme de la creme doctors for like very specialized things. They have great doctors, but not for like super specialized things. So it was like really jarring, but it was like, this is treatable. Like, this is not fatal. This is treatable. So then they started telling us to like look into different CDH doctors. They gave us a list of like some of the best in the country. At the time, we were like, we're self-employed, and at the time our business was doing really well, that we could do whatever we want. We were like, we could relocate to another state. We could go here. We could do this. We could do whatever. So over the next like week or two, we're looking into options, and we narrowed it down to 2: Denver, Colorado, or St. Petersburg, Florida. And we were like, well, Denver would be great because it's like 5 hours from us. Like, it's directly north. We don't have to like severely revamp our lives. But eventually we settled on the Florida option because we were like, sunshine sounds good for our mental health. And like, it was the best doctor for it. And we were like, we have the privilege and flexibility to go wherever. Let's go to the best. You know, like if we could go with like 98% versus 95%. Let's do 98. um, so then we're just like, feeling hopeful. We had interviews with both hospitals and doctors, and started like literally making moves to move to Florida, like at least like part-time. We were looking at like long-term housing, chatting with friends that lived in the area, um, just seeing like what was around to do. We started like talking with other families that had like NICU kids, and just like, what's that experience possibly going to be like? And just like setting ourselves up for like this new world, feeding tubes and all that jazz. We were planning to move to Florida, but there was still like basically no rush, and we still had all these other doctor's appointments. So we were like partially moving on with our lives, and also partially like taking steps to move to Florida. And because Killian did have like an intense diagnosis, the MFMs were now letting John come to the ultrasound. All the appointments moving forward. So like that was a pro of the situation, is I wasn't like sitting alone during all these diagnoses. Just everything. So then, they were like, we will see you in, I think we were going weekly at this point, because they really wanted to like monitor Killian. And where we lived, we were like 7,000 feet up in the mountains. So like we were basically in the Rockies. We were basically in Colorado without any of the people. So we had an appointment scheduled, and like a whiteout snowstorm came in. And so we called them, and we were like, hey, we're not going to drive 3 hours round trip in this. Can we reschedule our appointment now and just do it next week? Because we've been doing every 2 weeks at this point. What's another few days kind of thing? And they were like, yeah, sure, that's fine. And then they immediately called us back, and they were like, the doctor's just a little concerned. Can you guys come in the day after? So like, we're not coming in the day of our scheduled appointment. Can we come in the day after that? And we were like, hopefully roads are fine, but sure, yeah, we'll do that. That's fine. Not gonna like not go against doctor's orders here. So then we drive down, and this is October 28th. So this is the anniversary of our third miscarriage. We go down and go in for the appointment. They're scanning us. Another kind of like ominous feel. She leaves. The doctor comes in. There were like 3 MFM doctors that we worked with. One we didn't really like, and we told the other doctors we don't want to meet with them anymore. The other 2, one was like super, super compassionate, friendly. And then the other one was like a really good guy, but he was like, I will like info dump on you kind of thing. Like I will word vomit all of the scientific things for that, which like we love that in these situations. So luckily that's the doctor we had this day. And we go in, and he's basically like, I'm going to explain a lot of things to you that you've probably never heard of. And I'm going to do my best to explain it to you. And I can't tell you how like severe it is looking, because we don't have that technology. You're gonna have to go to Colorado for further testing. I already called them, and you're booked for an appointment at like 7 a.m. the day after tomorrow, kind of thing. So we have like tomorrow to drive up there, and then we'll spend all day in the hospital the following day. So we're like, whoa, okay, what's going on? So the way that he explained it, and at the time he was like, this is what we think is happening. They're going to do all these tests and confirm what's actually happening. So what it looks like is so with an identical twin pregnancy, they shared the placenta. They had their own individual sex, but they shared the placenta in this type of identical twin pregnancy. But when it was formed, Killian got this much of the placenta, and Seamus got this much of it. So Killian had like you know, I don't remember the specific number, but let's say like 10% of the placenta, and Seamus had 90. So Killian wasn't getting enough nutrients. He wasn't growing efficiently. Um, and there was like three things we were looking at. One was TTTS, which is called twin to twin transfusion syndrome. One twin's getting too much, one twin's not getting enough. SIUGR, selective intrauterine growth restriction, which like a lot of these three things all kind of play with each other. Like I feel like every time I try to explain them individually, they all kind of sound like the same thing. So Kelly's not getting enough. Seamus is getting too much. And it's like messing with their blood cells and things like that. For the most part, Seamus is healthy, but that could change any minute if we're not proactive, or essentially. So he's explaining all of this, and we're like, okay, we're asking about statistics, we're asking about this, that, whatever. He's explaining everything that he can, but he's also like, ultimately, like, you just need to go to Colorado and do these tests. So we like, okay. We go home, we pack up our stuff. Luckily, we had a friend in Colorado. Like, we do like everything with our dogs. We have 2 dogs. And she's a big dog person. So we're like, we're bringing our dogs. Can we leave our dogs with you? We get a hotel room. It's a 5-hour drive. And also, like, our doctor was like, this is treatable if it's not as severe as it, like, if it's not super severe, this is treatable. You could be fine. But you could also like be somewhat hospitalized, bedridden the rest of the pregnancy. And we were around 19 weeks. So we are like the whole 5-hour drive there. I'm looking up apartments in Colorado near the hospital and things like that. Doing like virtual tours, all sorts of things. Just for like worst case scenario, no matter how this appointment goes, if it's like you need to be monitored frequently, or like if you really need to be monitored, you need to stay here. Then it's like, okay, we have a plan. We want to stay here. We want to do this, whatever. So I'm kind of doing that while John's driving. And then we get there. And so this is the 29th. This is the day before my 30th birthday, my golden birthday, turning 30 on the 30th. So we drop off the dogs. We have dinner with our friend. We go to the hotel. I shower. And then I come out and John's like, everyone sent in a video to wish you happy birthday. And he made this whole like video compilation thing of people just like saying like random lovely messages and things like that. Granted, they all made this video like long before they knew what the day was going to be. But so that was lovely. Then we go to bed and barely asleep because we're like anxiety ridden. And then we get up the next day, we go get breakfast super early, we go to the hospital. And they were so on top of everything. They sent us a whole itinerary. You're going to go do an echocardiogram at this time in this room with this person. And then after that, you're going to have a 20-minute break. And then you're going to go do this thing over here with this person and this. And it's like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., just like a whole test. And a break for lunch. And so we're basically doing that all day. And it's like, we do all this stuff and at 4 or 5 p.m. or whatever, then we have like a meeting with the team of like what they're looking like, what their options, what are we doing. So we're doing tests all day, a whole variety of different sorts of ultrasounds. We got so many pictures of the boys. They were super, super cute. And then I had an MRI, and like I don't know anything about MRIs, but everything I've heard is like it's really loud, but it's really quick. So I'm going in there like, and again, I'm terrified of hospitals. So I'm going in there like with that mindset of like, okay, it might be like loud and scary, but it's super quick. It's gonna be over before you know it. And so I go in, and it's like the children's hospital. So I'm going into this MRI room, and there's like toys and stuff everywhere. But we're like signing me in and stuff. And they're like, okay, now go ahead and pick out a movie. And I was like, you can pick out a movie. I thought this was like 5 minutes. And long story short, it ended up being like an hour and a half. And, yeah. So, and yeah, so I'm looking at the list and it was like a blur. Like, I'm like, cannot compute. What are you talking about? And I see Jurassic Park and I'm like, that's a badass movie. I'll watch Jurassic Park. Um, which like first 5 minutes of that movie, terrible if you're having a panic attack in an MRI because it's chaos. Right. Yeah. It's like, oh, great. Screaming to death. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
Really calming me down right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I forgot specifically how long it was, but the scene where the car is falling out of the tree, that's when they were like, okay, we're wrapping up. Kind of thing.
I just had a great time.
Yeah. Right. I'm zen now, let me tell you. Yeah, the whole time I just like I wasn't like full blown panic attacking, but anytime I felt like it, I was just like in my head, like metaphysically connecting with the boys, like we got this, we're strong, I'm doing this for you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Finally got over with that, and I just like sobbed into John's arms of just like a release of like, but I survived. And
Isn't MRI of like the brain though?
I honestly I don't know what all these things are, but they were scanning stuff going on in my stomach.
Okay.
Or whatever. Like their movements and blood flows and stuff like that.
Okay.
So yeah, that was like the most gnarly of the tests. Everything else was basically either like blood draws or ultrasound variations. And then we have the meeting with probably one of the world's sweetest doctors in the world, Dr. Barrett. I love him to death. And so when first the CDH doctor comes in, he's like, I remember talking on the phone. Good news is like, doesn't look like it's that bad, blah, blah, blah. And John and I are just sitting there like, we're not fucking here for the CDH. Like, can we talk to the big doctor we're here to talk to? So Dr. Barrett comes in with his like social service person, secretary, whatever. And he like in more detail explains like what we're looking at, what we're dealing with, and what our options are. And it's very similar to what our doctor in San Fe told us, but was just like not a good outcome. Like our options were basically, so the biggest issue was if like Killian was basically actively dying. And if we were to do nothing, they share a placenta. So there's going to be this extreme shift of blood cells that's either going to severely brain damage Seamus or kill him. And like it was like that is what happens if we do nothing. Option B was a radiofrequency ablation of the placenta. So basically separating the placenta, and Killian keeps his and Seamus keeps his and hope for the best. But the doctor was like, he is like so actively dying so rapidly kind of deal that we we want to give Seamus the best chances at this point kind of thing. Like we can do whatever you guys say that you want to do. But the third option was to do a radio frequency ablation procedure, which is like cauterizing with a laser essentially. Killian's umbilical cord so that Seamus can keep the entirety of the placenta. And Killian is no longer attached to it. So, which is not a legal procedure everywhere, including Missouri. It's illegal to do that here. But yeah, so those were our options: is do nothing likely lose both or keep one, but he's severely brain damaged. Separate the placenta and, likely lose Killian. Seamus had less of a placenta. Or remove Killian's umbilical cord and give Seamus the best fighting chance. So we always say choice in quotation marks. Our choice was we chose to do the umbilical cord one, although how much of a choice is that? Our hands were basically tied.
And you were 20 weeks at this point?
Yeah, 19 weeks, and the procedure was 19 weeks and 4 days. This meeting was 19 weeks and 3 days. Yeah. So yeah. So then it was so my husband is sitting there fighting, not arguing, fighting, but can we do this? What if we try this? What about this? What about this? And I'm sitting there, my husband and I both practice a type of meditation called Vipassana. And it's really intense, but it's basically just the very long story shorter of it is just accepting what the present moment is kind of deal. And so basically just to keep me sane, I'm sitting there going this doctor wouldn't mislead us sort of deal. He's going to tell us what the best option is. So I just need to accept that. I'm not going to fight that, push back on it. So I'm getting kind of agitated with my husband because he's what if we do this? What if we do this? And I'm sitting there going, we know what the option is. Let's just move forward with our lives. This sucks, but this is what we have to do, kind of thing. But yeah, emotional situation. Everyone's crying. Even doctor has tears in his eyes, kind of thing. But yeah, so we eventually are yes, we'll do that procedure. He tells us we're gonna come in first thing in the morning. We sign all the paperwork, blah blah blah. And so then we go back to our hotel room for the night, and we're just absolute mess all night. And I'm struggling to fall asleep because it's in my mind, it's as soon as I close my eyes, I'm choosing for it to be tomorrow and say bye to you. And I don't want to do that, if that makes sense. It's I want to fight to stay awake as long as I can because I don't want it to be tomorrow. And it's the whole you're having surgery tomorrow and stuff like that. So you can't eat beforehand and drink beforehand. And we're sobbing all night long. So I'm severely dehydrated, so thirsty in the morning. Yeah, long story short, we go to bed and we wake up. So it's the next day. Can't eat anything, can't drink anything. I'm already telling my husband, as soon as I'm out of surgery, I want a gallon of water and a gallon of apple juice and a gallon of orange juice and a gallon of chocolate milk. I'm so thirsty. And we go to the hospital. It's this really awkward check-in at the front because we're there so early, 4 or 5 in the morning, that we had to have the front doors unlocked and go through this certain desk at the front before we went up to our wing. And they're doing this awkward check-in of where are you going? Labor and delivery. I'm sorry, where are you going? Labor and delivery. And they're congratulations, kind of thing. And it's thanks. Yeah, right. And yeah, I was just get it out. But yeah, so we moved forward, and everyone at the hospital was just phenomenal, above and beyond, 10 out of 10. Just so caring, compassionate, treated us like humans and not patients. You know what I mean? Yeah, so long story short, go back, do the procedure. It's they don't put you under or anything. It's local anesthesia, laparoscopically, nothing severely invasive. And yeah, so then procedure, we go back. John had pounds of apple juice waiting for me. And then, so this was Saturday, and he wanted us to stay in town until Monday and do a follow-up. And he also told us that, like, when he did the procedure, like, Killian was he was like, I almost struggled to sleep last night because I was like, this kid is so sick. I don't know if he's going to last through the night. And I would feel terrible if I sent them home without doing the procedure and something happened. Luckily, that didn't happen. But he was like, basically, the second we ended the umbilical cord, he died within like seconds. And sometimes it's like minutes or longer. So he was like, that's just like um, validation of like how sick he was.
Yeah. And probably makes it like a little easier. I'm not even saying anything is easy, but like just knowing that that was what was best at that time because of how fast it went. Like it would
totally
be hard to have that happen and then like it be minutes or hours or something like that.
Yeah, no, it was very like, a degree of balm on a whim kind of thing of like, okay, well, we did the right thing, feels like, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then because of how identical twin pregnancies are, they were so we could not remove Killian. We couldn't, if we wanted to remove Killian, we would have to remove Seamus, and Seamus was not at a viable age yet. So I ended up carrying both of them inside of me the whole rest of the pregnancy. So every time we did an ultrasound, we saw both of them. And like the further along we went, it was like Killian became just like this like lump of bones almost. Like you could still make it out, but it was like it went from like human shaped to like just more and more like just kind of bones, it looked like. But he ended up like right here underneath my ribs near the end of the pregnancy. And all the doctors were great. They always gave us the option to like, do you want to see him? Kind of thing. It's okay if not, no judgment. And we were always like, yes, we would love to see him. So yeah, that was October. That was Golden birthday. And then honestly, whole rest of the pregnancy was great. No issues. Everything was healthy. Eventually, they even told John he couldn't come to appointments anymore because they were like, everything's so healthy, you don't need to sit in on this anymore. So then March rolls around, and again with how like Louis and stuff, New Mexico is like, we talked to our OB about doing a home birth with like everyone knows everyone. So we're working with this midwife. Oh, I know, I love her. It's like we want to do a home birth, and it's like the rule of thumb is like you have to be an hour from a hospital, and we were technically like 55 minutes or something like that. And we were like, cool, I guess we hit that. And we talked to our doctor about it. We were like, is there any red flags about doing a home birth? And he's like, he maybe like seemed a little hesitant, but he told us like, no, you can do a home birth if you want, kind of thing. We were like, okay. Like, if you said no, we totally wouldn't have. We would have done a hospital, but since you said it's okay, you said it's okay. The things was like, make sure that where we live, the fire station has like off-road ambulance or something like that. There was like certain stipulations, and we like barely made all of them. So we were like, I guess this is a green light. Like we were kind of hesitant about it, but we were like, this is all green. It's all technically green. So I guess let's do it. So I was worried about carrying too far along. And there was a reason, I forgot why. Something with the complications and the boys and stuff. So around like 37, 38 weeks, I started doing like all the prune shakes or prunes or dates or whatever it was. The bouncing on the yoga ball and all the hacks to like get things moving. And so due date, I believe, was like March 24th or something. And March 8th, I started having contractions. And also we were like very public about our story throughout the whole like losing, even before like our journey of loss and losing Kellyanne and things like that. And there was this Australian reporter in Taos, New Mexico. It was like one of the sweetest humans in the world. And she like found us on social media telling our story. And she was like, shortly after we lost Killian, this was January. She was like, if not, please, that's perfectly fine. But like, could I follow you around the rest of your pregnancy? Like, can I like hear your story, tell your story, be a part of your story? Like, I will be as involved or as out of the picture as you want me to be. Like, I don't want to overstep any boundaries, blah, blah, blah. And we ended up becoming like almost like best friends with her. We were so close. She came to doctor's appointments with us. She came to, um, we had someone come into our house and basically like teach us how to have a home birth kind of thing. Try this technique, use this aspect of your house over here in this way, stuff like that. John, you can support her over here doing this. So the reporter, her name is Morgan. She was a part of all of that. And so we started having contractions and, but it wasn't like serious. Anything was happening. But it was enough where it's like, oh, that's happening. Let's go grocery shopping because we're not going to be popping out anytime soon. The nearest grocery store is like an hour away. And so I'm just like standing in the aisles of the grocery store, like, oh, I'm having a contraction right now, kind of thing. And then, so kind of like sleep through the night. Then it's March 9th. I'm trying to think. So March 9th is the same as March 8th, if I remember correctly. March 8th, I believe, is the day I lost my mucus plug. And then 9th, I'm like low-key contractions, but nothing serious. We go to bed the night of the 9th. And in the middle of the night, like 4 a.m. or something like that, it's like contractions start. Not active labor, but like contractions start. And it's like, oh, I think things are happening. And so we text Morgan, the journalist, and Dorothy, our midwife, and they start making moves to head our way. Nothing's like alarming, but they're making moves to head our way. And we're just like getting our house set up for this happening. I'm doing the like low, steady breathing, and we have affirmations hanging all over our house that we made, and we had a list of affirmations that we liked. So we made some, but we also had friends and family make some and mail them to us. So we just had these like supportive things from people everywhere else all over the place. We had one dog that like didn't leave our side the other time, and we had another dog that was like as far away as possible. Like, what the hell are you guys doing? What does that mean? Not a fan of this. And so it was like contractions were happening, things were progressing. But then around noon, it kind of stalled out a little bit. And we had a tub, but I don't think it was filled up yet. Like one of the inflatable tubs. And so Dorothy's like, how about this? Since it stalled out, we're gonna go grab lunch. We'll just like pop to town, grab lunch, and shoot us a text if anything happens. And she was like, if you want, you guys can have like a little cuddle, passionate time or whatever. So they do that. We go lay in bed. I have one of those like giant, like peanut shaped, I don't know what it's called. It's like an exercise ball, but peanut shaped between my legs. I'm like laboring that way or whatever. And then our midwife texts us and was like, I know that this sounds really willy, but this one girl that we had worked with, she was like, or maybe it was our grief counselor. She talked to our grief counselor and she was like, I talked to your grief counselor and she recommended that maybe you guys talk to Seamus and talk to Karen and let them know that like we're ready. Let Seamus know that his brother was coming out with him. That you're not like leaving anyone behind. We're ready for you both, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like let Seamus know that you're ready for him and that he's not leaving his brother, kind of thing. And so we had this very emotional situation during that. And it was like immediately I'm in active labor. Like literally happened. We're crying, kissing, light switch. We're like, I'm in it. Yeah, it was super intense and like active labor intense.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, we're gone. This was around 2 or 3 o'clock, I think. Um, and so then we like John texts them and was like, Jayme just had like 3 huge contractions, like back to back to back, and they're like, we're on the way. And this time they came with a doula that we were working with too. So then we had midwife, doula, and Morgan. And so now we start filling up the birth tub. John's feeding me watermelon religiously. I think I ate like an entire watermelon to myself, maybe a half of one. Um, and but yeah, I mean, he was phenomenal. He's like working with the tub. He's cutting up watermelon. The second I have contraction coming on, he drops everything and starts pushing on my lower back. Okay, I'm good. Thank you so much. He goes back to cutting up the watermelon or filling up the tub. Don't be effort. And then, there's moments of like, sitting on the toilet and throwing up or, variety of things. But then finally I get the okay from our midwife, you can go in the tub. And that was like, I just remember that being such a relief of like, because there was a moment too where I'm like, I don't the tub yet. I want the tub yet. And she was like, not yet, not yet. And then finally, oh, and it was, my water wasn't breaking. So I gave her permission to break my water. So then we're in the tub and I'm laboring in the tub. And I feel like it was like I got in the tub and I was like, the rest just went so fast. It was like, I'm in the tub. I felt like I was barely laboring. And then at one point, our midwife grabbed my hand and my husband's hand and put it underwater. And we both felt the top of my son's head. And I just remember my reaction was like, go on.
I think I've had a reaction like that too.
I was like, I know this is supposed to be like really profound and beautiful, but it's like, oh my God. that is scalp and hair coming out of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we might have a photo of John's face in that moment. He's like, it's like this is the most alien thing we've ever done together. So yeah, and then she's telling me not to push yet, and I'm starting to feel like a little scared. And I'm like, I feel like I need to push. I don't know, but I feel like it. And she's like, try not to push if you can. I'm like, just wait a minute. And I'm like, I feel like I need to push. And she's like, okay, then push, then push. And so then I started pushing, and he was out pretty quickly. Not that many pushes. Like once we hit active labor, he was on our arms in less than 3 hours, or right at 3 hours, give or take. He was born at 5:51, March 10th, 2021. And he was covered in vernix. But he was very, very like whiny, but not like severely either. Healthy, short umbilical cord. Because I was like trying to hold him up here and I was like, whoa, why does that feel weird? And he was like, oh, it's a long umbilical cord, I guess. But yeah, I'm just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, the whole time. I can't believe it. Kind of stuff. We're playing with like holding his hands, rubbing randomly on his skin, and our midwife is like checking on the vitals, everything looking amazing. And yeah, just everyone's like cloud nine. It's awesome. And then eventually it's like, let's go from the tub to the bed. And that's where we're gonna do the umbilical cord, and we need to push the placenta out. And we were like pretty sure Killian was still in me because I had not passed Killian. And we were like, okay, so you still need to deliver Killian and we have to get the placenta out. So we moved to the bed. I'm pretty sure John did the umbilical cord. I don't really remember a lot of this part. But then eventually she was like, okay, we need to get this placenta out. So she got like a birthing stool and she was like, try to like push so that we can get this out. And we're trying. And it doesn't happen. But some of it comes out, if I remember correctly, some of it comes out, but it's like in shards. It's like very like imagine like old clothes really like torn up and tattered. It was just like in pieces. So then that's not a good sign. So then our thought was maybe Killian went like vertical and is blocking things from coming out, sort of thing. And she was like, we might have to like transfer you to a hospital. Another option is we could try like me putting my hand in to remove him, but it's going to hurt really bad. And I was like, okay. And she was like, let's have like a safe word of like, if it's too much, just shout it and I'll stop immediately. And we were like, okay, let's do watermelon. So she like barely even started. And it was like 10 out of 10. Nope, not a fan. Watermelon. I was like, let's just do the hospital transfer. She's like, okay, I'm going to call the hospital, let them know we're on our way, blah, 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 things like that. Call 911, whatever. At this point, we were like, she's like, I can transfer you right now, kind of thing. So as she's calling them, I start hemorrhaging. And I start like really bad hemorrhaging.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our discussion and found it insightful and beneficial. Remember, the Golden Hour Birth Podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you. If you appreciate the content we bring you each week, consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform or sharing the show with your friends and family. Your support helps us reach more people and continue creating valuable episodes. If you have any questions, suggestions, or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach us on our website, www.goldenhourbirthpodcast, or connect with us on social media. We value your feedback and want to make sure that we're delivering the content you want to hear. Before we sign off, we'd like to express our gratitude to our incredible guests who joined us today. We are honored that they trust us enough to be so open and vulnerable. We're grateful for their time and willingness to share their stories with us. If you're interested in taking the conversation further with us, join us on our Facebook group, The Golden Hour Birth Circle. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode, so be sure to tune in. Until then, stay golden and remember to take care of yourself. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. Bye!